Hi, my name is Zifik, and this is the installation video for my GPU particle prefab. So, just to dive right in, I've got my example project already set up with an avatar loaded. The first thing we're going to do actually is go back to the Creator Companion, because we're going to need some additional packages. So from the project list, go to Manage Projects, and the first one is absolutely required, the shader will not work without it, is Audio Link. So go ahead and click on the plus sign to the right to add that to your project. And most of you will probably want to use VRCFury. It takes care of a lot of the merging and binding that, most of us don't want to muck around with. So add that in. And the next two are optional. The first one is the AV3 emulator. It's a really nice tool to test your avatar in Unity before you upload it, so you don't have to go all the way into VRChat to see if you got things right. And the last one is only if you're going to do a manual installation, so without VRCFury. This would be if you want to position things in a custom way or just want to do it yourself um, without VRC scripts. So I'm going to add that in for demonstration. Click back on my project and let those things load in. Take a moment. Audio Link might yell at you about upgrading old shaders. I know there's no problems here, so I'm just click on no thanks. Let that think for a little bit more. And there we go. All right, next step, we're going to want to import the particles. So go to Assets, Import Package, Custom Package, find wherever you downloaded the Unity package for my particles, and import those in. And we're ready to go. All right, so the first method of installation I'm going to talk about is with the VRCFury prefab, since those are the easiest. So you're going to go and open the Particle Cloud folder, find the VRCFury folder, and you're going to see here is your prefab. Now, before I go further, I do want to talk about some of the variants I have, because of all the toggles and options that I put in for you to mess around with in-game, it takes up a lot of synced parameters. If you don't know, you have a maximum budget of 256 synced parameters. This prefab takes up 120 of those, so almost half. And so for those of you who already have a lot of things packed onto your avatar, you might want a lighter prefab. And so I've got 3 variants over here that just take out some of the options and menus to take down that parameter count. So if you click on them, you'll see that there's a number at the end of the prefab name, and that's the number of sync parameters that each of those uses. So one of them where I take away the physics options, another one where I take away the visuals, and a third one where I take away both of those for the lightest version that has 30 synced parameters. However, with the newest version of VRCFury, there's a really shiny new feature that they have called unlimited parameters that works just fine with the Particle Cloud prefab. So you can also just use that, and that's what we're going to show using today. The last variant that might be of interest to some people is that this prefab is set up for right-handed people. So I have prepared a left-handed prefab where I've just mirrored any transitions and controls and stuff like that for a left-handed person. So I'm going to go back and use my full prefab. And for that, since I am going to demonstrate using the unlimited parameters, I'm just going to click on the root of the avatar first, scroll down and add a component. I'm going to search for unlimited parameters and just add that on there. You don't need to do anything else. VRCFury will just work its magic. All right, so you're going to take the prefab, whatever variant that you want. I'm going to first drag it into the scene, not onto the avatar, but onto the scene. And that way there's no scaling issues down the line. And then from the scene, we're going to drag it onto the avatar. Next thing we're going to do is expand the prefab. And you're going to see that there are these 4 PC target objects. These are the locations where the prefab is going to interact with your avatar. So the primary and secondary are going to be your main and offhand, the primary locations where the particles are going to swirl around. The storage location is a place where you can put the particles when you're not playing with them. That way they're not flying in everyone's faces. Or you can have it shapes there so you can use the particles to accessorize. And I'll talk about that further in the video. The last one is an info card for your in-game reference. So with VRCFury, these are automatically going to bind onto particular locations on your armature. So we just need to reposition them so that it looks nice in game. So first thing, I'm going to get rid of these giant camera objects or gizmos so I can actually see what I'm doing. And then starting from the top of the list, I'm going to position my primary. This one is going to bind to the right index fingertip. So in my case, I want it at the very tip of my claw. And go to the secondary. This is going to bind to the left index fingertip. And of course, if you're using the left-handed prefab, just mirror everything I'm saying between right and left. Next up is the storage. I like having it bound to my chest, so that's where it goes. And I have it set over my right shoulder. I'm just going to push that back a little bit. That way it's a little bit more out of the way, so I don't accidentally touch this contact if I'm just waving my hands in front of my face. And lastly, we have the info card. This is going to bind to your left hand. So I'm just going to position this over my left hand. And keep in mind, if your avatar is not T-pose but A-pose or just has your hand in some other position, you might want to rotate this appropriately so that it lines up with the hand. Once you're happy with that, you're done actually. That's it. Easy as pie. I'll talk about further customizations you can do further in the video, but if you want, you're ready to go. You can just upload the avatar just like this. So before I talk about those customizations, I'm first going to go through the manual installation method. So that's if you want to bind these targets onto other places on the armature yourself, or you just prefer to do everything by hand. So I'm going to go ahead and hide the VRCFury version and bring up a clean copy of my avatar. And if you are doing the manual install method, you'll see there is a folder called manual install with everything that you'll need to add onto your avatar. And like before, we're going to take that prefab, drag it onto the scene first, and then from the scene, drag it onto the avatar. That way there's no scaling issues. This time, we're going to right-click on the prefab, go to prefab, and then click on unpack completely. Because this time, we're going to need to take these 4 PC targets and actually move them onto the armature itself where we want them, rather than have VRCFury do it for us automatically. So I'm going to put them onto the same locations as I did for the VRC prefab, just for this demonstration, but you can put them anywhere. Feet, tail, nose, I don't know, go crazy. So this first one I had on the right index finger originally. I need to go and find wherever that is. Drag this onto here, and position that how I like. The secondary is going to go onto the left index finger. Put that onto there. Reposition it. Storage. I like having it on the chest, but again, now you can put this anywhere that you want, and I'm going to talk more about the storage location further in the video for customizing that storage shape. Now, again, I'm just going to put that over my right shoulder, push that back a little out of the way. And finally, the info card. I'm going to put, again, onto my left hand. In this case, the bone is called left wrist, but, you know, whichever bone it is. And here, I have the info card disabled, so you're going to want to go over here and enable it temporarily, so you can see what you're doing. And then go back to the target storage, so you can actually, target info, so you can actually see what you're doing. And again, just position that, rotate it however you like so that it lines up with hand. All right, so that takes care of positioning those targets. Next, we're going to have to merge on the menu, the FX controller, and the parameters. So starting with the menu, I'm going to go over to burn in menu. And I'm just going to make a copy of this. So I don't mess with the original stuff. Put that copy over here. Go ahead and add a submenu. And go back to the manual install folder and drag that menu over there. Now, if you want to be a little bit pretty, you can go to Resources and Icons, and you'll see there is a logo for you to slide into the icon slot if you like. Up to you. All right. So next, we're going to have to do merge in the FX controller and the parameters. So this is where that Avatar 3.0 manager comes in handy. So I'm going to use that. Go to VR Labs, Avatar 3.0 manager. Place the root of your avatar here. And then we're going to be merging onto the FX layer. So I'm going to expand that. Scroll all the way down to animator to merge. And throw in the FX controller for the particle cloud. I like merging on new just so it keeps that old copy as a backup. All right. And then for the parameters, for some reason there isn't a merge on new option here. So I'm going to, again, go over here and create a copy. Just so I have that old one as a backup, just in case anything goes wrong. Or if you decide you want to take off the particles, and I'll be a little sad. And I'm going to put my copy into there. Go back to the Avatar 3.0 manager, and scroll down. Go back to the manual install folder, drag those particle parameters in. Fortunately, this time we're not going over the total limit, so I'm just going to copy those in. And I'm all done. And if you did want to use some of those lighter variants with the fewer sync parameters, you can go into the VRC folder to the variants, and you will see for each of those variants, you can just go into the folder and copy in that controller parameter and menu as you see fit. Okay, and that takes care of installing it manually. So now I'm going to talk about some customizations. So the first thing actually is, speaking of these variants, if you use them, the parameters that don't show up are going to default to whatever the materials are going to have on there when you upload it. So let me just show you how you might want to change those, if you so desire. I'm going to go back to the VRCFury prefab, since that's what most of you will be using. And in order to do this, in order to be able to see what I'm doing, I'm going to use the AV3 emulator. So I'm going to go to Tools, Avatar 3.0 emulator, and enable that. And then I can go and enter play mode with the play button in the top. VRCFury is going to do its thing. Might yell at you about right default things. I trust VRCFury to work its magic, so I'm just going to let it auto-fix things. Now, if I click on my avatar and go to Particle Cloud, you'll see there's this representation of your expression menu. I can enable it, reset positions, and there they are. Now you can go ahead and play around, see how they interact. All right, so for each of the variants, first one is the no physics. The physics is stored on, if you go to the prefab, open up World Anchor, Pivot 1, and Compute Main, and go look at that material over there. Or you can go over to the materials and just click on PC Main. All the physics settings are the ones under physics settings and manipulation force. I go into what each of these things are in the written guide, so I'm not going to go over them here, but you can go and mess around with them here until you get a result that you like. Similarly, for the visuals, those are going to be on the PC renderer material. So you go over here, you can expand that, and you'll see all these particle colors are what gets adjusted there, as well as the size. And so again, or you can find this again in the material section under PC render. And so if you want, you can go ahead and adjust the colors. But it's not going to adjust right now because it is being controlled by the full prefab. But otherwise, you would be able to mess around with that. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is changing the particle textures. I'm going to go ahead and reset my particles so you can... Right, I have to go over here, reset them, so we can zoom in and see what's going on. Each of these particles is right now just a little glowy orb, but you can actually go and slot in whatever texture you want. So again, I'm going to go to the PC render object material. That's either you can just go to materials and click on PC render, or go to the PC render objects and click on the material there. you will see that on one section of the material is this particle texture options. And you can just put in whatever texture you want. So I provided some for you to play around with. And if you want, you can just make them little moguses. This also supports sprite sheets and flipbooks. Again, I've provided some for you to play around with. And if you put one of those in, you'll just want to update the tiling appropriately. So I have a 4x4 one here. If I slide that in, I'll just want to update 4x4. And you'll see we got some nice petal particles now. The other two things you might want to adjust while you're here is the texture spin. So that is rotating the objects, or the textures rather. And this can be positive or negative, or you can just set it to 0 for nothing. And the value is how fast it spins. Maybe that is a small number. The texture animation speed is if you have a flipbook. This is how quickly it goes through that flipbook animation. So if you just have a sprite sheet, you can leave that at 0 if you just want some variations in your particles. But if you want it to animate, you can just go ahead and turn that number positive or negative, and you will see that controls the texture animation speed. Great. So that's it for the particle textures. So last but certainly not least, I'm going to talk about the storage shapes. So if you haven't played with my prefab in VRChat yet, just to demonstrate what that even is, I'm going to go over back to my root, behaviors, set to the storage position, and then the storage shape. You'll see it all gathers up into this nice little ball here, or this interesting geometric thing. So this shape can actually be whatever mesh you want. Just it won't do blend shapes or animate right now, but otherwise you can put whatever you want in here. And so I'm going to go through how to do that. So say instead of this funny geometric thing, I want a halo. I already have in here, and I want to put this halo as a particles over my head. So let's walk through how to do that. The first thing is once you have your model, whether it's an FBX or OBJ or whatever you have, into your Unity project, you're going to go to the top and click on the exit play mode for now. Go to Tools, Avatar 3.0 Emulate, or sorry, Particle Cloud, Storage Textures, and that's going to bring up this script. You're going to want to open up your FBX, find that mesh data, slide that in here, call it whatever you want. And if you want to, if you already know that this mesh is going to be not the size that you want, you can go ahead and preemptively put in a scaling factor. You don't need to, because there is also a scaling factor in the material itself for redundancy, so you can adjust it afterwards. I'm going to click on Create, and it's going to create this texture over here. And so what this is actually doing is it looks at this mesh, and then randomly samples the surface of it, and then stores that data into this texture for the shader. So what that means is, once you pass this data into the shader, you're not actually passing the mesh itself. You're not going to upload the mesh itself with your avatar, which means it's not going to impact your polygon count whatsoever. And it means you can use however complicated a mesh that you want. It's not going to have any kind of performance impact. So I'm done with the script. I'm going to close that. Next thing is putting it onto your avatar. So I'm going to go ahead, and this is going to go into the PC main material. So you can either go and find the compute main object, or just go to materials, PC main, and you will see that there is this storage shape section here. That texture you generated is going to slot right into the storage data. And then you'll see that there is a storage scale and storage attract strength. The scale is just for resizing it. The attract strength is how powerfully it binds to that shape, so how quickly it sort of coalesces into that shape. You probably won't need to change that, but if you want to be, I guess, floatier, you can decrease that value. Or if you want to go quicker, you can increase it. But 30 seems to be a good middle ground. And so now I'm going to want to reposition, see how this looks. So I'm going to go back to play mode. And check that out. And go over here, Particle Cloud, enable it. I'm going to go to Behaviors, set it to Storage, and set it to the storage position. Fortunately, this is not quite how I want it to look. First of all, it's not over my head, and second of all, it's kind of big. So let's address those. If you're using the VRCFury prefab, you're going to want to go and click on the root of your avatar, or sorry, not the root, but the prefab. And then you're going to want to right-click it, go to prefab, and then unpack completely. That way you can edit these VRCFury components. You might need to click off of it and click back on in order to see that you can edit them. And then you're going to scroll down and find the armature link component that corresponds to the PC target storage. Now, you can either bind it to one of the options here, or if you just want to do it completely manually, if you want to stick it onto a different game object, or at the end of some custom Fizzbone animated whatever setup, you can also just remove this component entirely. So either use the options here, so I could just click on head there, but for now I will show you removing the component and doing it myself. So now I'm going to want to find where I want to put the storage target onto my avatar. So I'm going to go over to the head and bind that there. And now I'm going to want to reposition it. So in order to see what I'm doing, I'm going to go into play mode. Go and show that halo again. So particle cloud, enable, behaviors, position storage, and position storage, or storage shape. Now we can go ahead and move this around, rotate it however you like, and go into the compute main and change that storage scale. I'm going to make that a little bit smaller and adjust that over my head. Maybe rotate it around a little bit. All right, that looks pretty good. Now, when you go into play mode, the material settings will keep after you exit play mode, but any of this transform stuff is going to reset. So the way we're going to get this position so that we can put it into the actual object is we're going to click on the PC's target storage. We're going to right-click on transform up here before you exit play mode. Right-click over here, click on copy, and then click on world transform. Now that you have that, now we can exit play mode. Go back over to my PC target storage, right-click on transform, and paste world transform. Now you should see it is in the same position and rotation as before. Great. And now you're set. So just to mention, you can also put this in, for example, I could put it in a new target or another empty object and animate that, have it move around, have it spin, whatever, be creative. You can do some interesting things here. The one other thing I want to mention is if you're going to attach it to your head or any child thereof, VRC shrinks your head in your first person, right? And you don't want to end up with the particles down in your neck or in your view. So in order to alleviate that, if you have the newest version of the SDK, 3.5.2 or higher, there is a new VRC component called Head Chop that will keep the scale of your components, however which ones you choose. So we're going to go over here to the root of your avatar or wherever. Click on Add Component. I'm going to search for Head Chop. Going to expand Target Bones, add a new field, expand that, and then I'm just going to drag in my PC target storage here. And then you can just leave these as the defaults. So that way, once we're in game, it's going to actually stay above our head in our own view rather than shrinking down to our neck or something. One final thing with the storage is that if you want to change the contact area, that's the area that you're going to point into in order to actually store the particles. You can just click on PC target storage. You see it also has this cyan sphere. And then just go over to the contact receiver script and change the radius here. Make it bigger, smaller, and match your new storage shape. Whatever. And also one thing I forgot to mention for the VRCFury prefab, this informational billboard, it doesn't do anything. So if you don't want it cluttering your scene, you just go ahead and delete it. But VRCFury also just removes it automatically when you upload. And that's all. So thank you so much for checking out my GPU particle prefab. Hope you have a lot of fun with it. Hope you find some creative uses for it. And if you have any additional questions, problems, feedback, or just ideas for what to include in the future, please check out the help Discord link below. Thanks.